tonight we are going to talk about Babylon, Mystery Religion by Ralph Woodrow. This is the book where I'm getting a lot of information, and then I'm going to get some information out of the Bible as well. But tonight we're going to talk about Catholicism. And when we say the word Catholic, that's not talking about the Catholic Church. Catholic just means universal. We're Catholic. But Roman Catholic, now that is the mother-child worship. So I want to read to you in Revelation 17, 3 through 6. I better start at verse 1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth on many waters. The term waters means many people, meaning she's penetrated all different cultures.
Where was it? Revelation?
Revelation 17, 1 through 6. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. This isn't talking about a physical sin. It's talking about spiritual fornication. When the Lord was dealing with the northern and the southern kingdoms, he spoke to them as if they were committing fornication when they would go worship other gods. So that's what this is talking about. Verse 3, So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. This is the first beast, which is Antichrist, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Now, this whore that he is describing, it's a woman, a religion. The bride of Christ, which is who we are, is also depicted as a woman, as a bride. And in Ephesians it says that this bride is spotless. Let me just go there real quick. It says that he might sanctify and cleanse it, talking about the church, with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that it should be holy and without blemish. Now compare that church with this religion that is depicted as a whore. And then in verse 4, she's decked out with all this stuff, with gold and jewels and pearl, because it's very attractive to the world. Verse 5, And upon her forehead was a name written. This all is in capital letters now. Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great amazement. So what we're going to talk about is this other religion, the mystery religion of Babylon. Babylon mystery religion. And what I want to hand out here are some maps. Gloria, can you hand these out? Gloria's the monitor. Okay, and I'm going to show this up here, this map. If you're watching this on YouTube, what you can do is just take a screenshot of that, so you can have that map. So what we're going to talk about is this religion, this mystery religion that started in Babylon and was continued on down through the ages, but it started with a mother-child worship so long before Christ was ever born. So this mystery religion, Babylon, it's described as a counterfeit. religion, a counterfeit system. And there were several prophecies about Babylon being destroyed, which it was. When John got this prophecy about Babylon, Babylon was already destroyed. So now we're going to go back to the beginning, to where this started, this religion. And so to do that, we're going to go all the way back to Genesis. And we talked before about the Tower of Babel, but we're going to have to go through that again to see what happens here. We're going to go to Genesis 11, 1 through 9. Okay, so this is right after the flood. There were 8 souls who survived the flood. That was Noah and his wife, and his 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and their 3 wives. That's 8 people. And God gave them instructions right after the flood. Genesis chapter 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. That means they were supposed to spread out over the whole earth. So now chapter 11. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, this is verse 3, come, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and slime they had for mortar. It's kind of ironic. They didn't have any stones or mortar, so they had to make bricks and slime. And they said, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. Wow. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Well, that's what God had told them to do. He had told them to go move out into the whole earth, but they decided to make a city. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people are one, and they all have one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. So this tower, it could have been walls, and the tower could have been at one point in the wall, like a lookout, or it could even have been, hey, they just got past the flood. Maybe they're thinking, if we build this and there's another flood, we can get away. Verse 7. Come, let us go down there, confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them, which is what they were supposed to do in the beginning, abroad from thence, upon the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel. You know what Babel means?
Like when you're talking fast and it's just kind of like...
You can't understand. It's nonsense. It means confusion, because their languages were confused. It says, because the Lord did confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. Like, you hear that terminology, psychobabble. Mm-hmm. That's like psychological nonsense. Mm-hmm. But that's what the word Babel means today. It's like blah, 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 right? So if we go to Genesis 10, let's just go back a little bit and see who was the builder of Babylon. Now, I told you about the 3 sons that Noah had, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Well, of the sons of Ham, this is in verse 6, there was Cush, Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. And then when we go to verse 8, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was powerful. He was charismatic. He could draw a crowd, and he was strong. And he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. When that says before the Lord, he wasn't just hunting animals. He was hunting people. And when it says before the Lord, that means he did this in the sight of God with no problem. It's like against the Lord. That's what it means when it says he did this before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. In the beginning of his kingdom, now this is we find out who started Babylon, was Babel. And if you look on your map, you're going to see these cities. And Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar. So he had a kingdom of all of these cities. And if you'll see on your map, his empire. So he was a pretty important guy, and God had said for them to spread out all over, not to start a city and become this king. So the name Nimrod means, let us revolt. That's kind of a bad name.
Sure is.
And he would have been the great grandson of Noah. So what he did was he established a government that was a complete dictatorship. He was the king, he was the priest, he was everything. And he had a wife. Her name was Semiramis. But back of all this, back of Nimrod, was Satan's rage against God. He was what was behind this whole false religion that was starting. And this is the first kingdom that was ever mentioned in the Bible. So he was basically the Lord of Shinar. And in the Jewish encyclopedia, it says, Nimrod was he who made all the people rebellious against God. It wasn't only him. He wanted everyone to rebel against God. He was also a priest of devil worship. So Nimrod finally dies, but you know what? Satan didn't. He was there to carry on this religion. And Satan knew he was in the garden when God made the curse and God made the promise of a redeemer through the woman. He knew that. So way back here in Babylon, the devil is setting up a religion that is going to try to counteract when the real Christ comes. Eventually, Nimrod dies. And so it's said among the people there that, well, when he died, he became the sun. He became the sun god, which later in the Bible is called Baal. You'll hear a lot about Baal worship, and we're going to get into that next week. It's all through the Bible. So anyway, he dies, and then his wife, Semiramis, takes over. Well, she ends up becoming pregnant, and she has a very creative way of explaining her pregnancy.
What is her name?
Semiramis. It's Semiramis. She's the queen. Well, she claims that her pregnancy was from a sunbeam from Nimrod. So she claims that the child that she has is divine. Now this is going to start sounding kind of familiar. Mm-hmm. The child is divine. Not only is that, it's Nimrod going to be reborn. So not only is she going to be the wife of the god, she's going to be the mother of the god. Yes.
Who did she get pregnant from?
Who knows?
Yeah.
This is her way of explaining it.
Maybe the devil.
No, I'm sure she just got pregnant.
Yeah.
That's not hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is her creative way of explaining it. And there were a lot of gullible people there who had so much respect for Nimrod. And then his wife, Semiramis. Well, she finally gives birth to a son, and his name is called Tammuz. Tammuz, Tammuz. And by the way, this is his symbol, a T, which is a cross.
Oh,
Wow.
That's a sign of Tammuz.
Wow.
Yes. So now we have the divine Semiramis, Queen of Heaven. She's married to the sun god. And then she's giving birth he's being reborn through her. So now she's having a divine birth. So Satan is using them like puppets. He's setting up this religion. And so the people of Babylon actually worship Semiramis more than the sun because she was the wife and the mother. They ended up calling her the Queen of Heaven. Then you got to think that when God confounded their languages and now they're scattered all over the world, you know what? They took their religion with them. And you'll see down through the ages that it kind of gets morphed into different goddesses. You've got Venus and Cupid, Ashtaroth and Baal, Aphrodite and Eris, and then you have the Madonna and Child. So it was already set up that the woman's going to be worshipped, right? God is a jealous God. In the Ten Commandments, he said, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." That's Exodus 20. But I want to read you something in Ezekiel. And this is a vision that God has given Ezekiel about the abominations that are going to happen in Jerusalem. And Ezekiel 8:14. It says, "Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north. And behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz." This is at God's temple.
Oh, wow.
Okay, it says, "Evidently the women of Judah lamented for Tammuz on the 5th day of the 6th month. The worship of Tammuz was one of many fertility cults of the ancient Near East, which is Mesopotamia, that had several local variations. Weeping for Tammuz was an act of worship intended to bring him back from the netherworld. Thus, these women were worshiping this Assyrian deity. Oh, I know. Later on, they had a lot of fertility goddesses. Each area had their own. And Ishtar was a fertility goddess, and it was right about the time of Easter. In the Bible, that's called Passover. But the heathens call it Ishtar because at that time of the year, the same time that Passover happens, is when all of these spring rites are happening. So that's why at Easter they have eggs, sign of fertility, right? And rabbits who multiply like crazy.
That's
So
right.
it's all about fertility. That's what all that is. And so it's even kind of strange that that is in the King James, the word Easter, but it's not in the original text. Easter is a variation of Ishtar. Nimrod was believed to be the sun god. Fire was his earthly representation. Therefore, candles, you wonder why they light candles in the Catholic Church? Why? Candles and ritual fires were lighted in his honor.
Oh, wow.
And Baal actually means Lord, master or Lord. So that's why they called him Baal, because to them he was the Lord. And through the generations, he got other symbols. And of course, he had the sun symbol. And then he was also represented as a fish, as trees, as pillars, and of animals. And all the deities who were called Baal in the Bible are described as false gods and had idol representations. And do you remember that when Abraham, he was called out of this area in Ur, and it said that his father had idols. All idol worship came out of Mesopotamia.
Wow.
All of it. That's where it originated. And it got into Canaan. And so when they came into Canaan and they were interacting with these people, they ended up taking wives, and the wives took husbands, and pretty soon they're intermixing, and now they're worshiping their idols.
When was this? How long before Christ?
Well, that's a good question. It was right after the flood when this started.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was right after the flood. And you know, I learned from Vernon McGee that the flood is the middle of the Bible. Yes, chronologically.
Oh, wow.
The time before the flood and the time after the flood to Revelation, the flood is the middle.
Really?
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Wow, that's
But
amazing.
people lived so long
Uh-huh.
before the flood.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the middle. But I'll find that out for you, that exact answer to that question next week. So that's going to be it for tonight.
And the people already knew, I mean, in the Bible already God had promised Christ.
Yes,
They already knew that they already were
yes.
expecting.
Satan knew about it. I can't say all the people knew about it, but you see, Satan knew about it because he promised in Genesis chapter 3, when he was giving the curses out to the devil and to the woman and to the man, he also gave a promise to the woman that her seed, let's read it. This is the first mention of the gospel. Genesis 3:14. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field, and on thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thy seed, the devil's seed, and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Okay, so that's the first, right there.
Prophecy.
Yeah, that's the first prophecy. And you see, the devil knew that. He knew all about that the seed was going to come through the woman. So he was setting this up ahead of time, this false religion, so that when Christ came, hey, everybody would be so used to worshiping the mother child, it would just fit right in with Mary and Jesus. And of course, Mary's the Queen of Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get into a lot more of this next week.
Yeah.